Welcome, and thank you for tuning into our Tech Talk. I'm Rachel Shekell, and I'm part of the dedicated team of policy, legal, compliance, and product experts at Plaid focused on building for an open finance future. I'm moderating today's discussion on the long-awaited Section 1033 rule, which was released on October 22nd. We're excited to talk about 1033 because it's a positive shift for the financial services industry, which will make it easier than ever for consumers to benefit from the competition and choice that open banking can provide. We also heard from our customers that navigating and complying with new regulations can be challenging. To help, today we'll be covering the latest insights on the final 1033 rule, what it could mean for your business as a data recipient, and finally, how your businesses can get started with compliance. Joining me today for the discussion is John Pitts, Plaid's Global Head of Policy, and Jordie Cohen, our 1033 Product Lead. John and Jordie, please tell us more about what you do at Plaid.
Thanks, Rachel. Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm John, and as the head of policy for Plaid, I spent the last 6 years advocating for consumers' right to access, share, and control their financial data. I'm really excited about how far open banking has come, and I look forward to breaking down the final 1033 rule with all of you today.
Hey everyone, I'm super excited to chat with you all today. I am the product side of everything that John is working on. So I manage a team that is focused on supporting Plaid's customers, our consumers, and data partners with innovative solutions that help them both with their 1033 compliance as well as differentiating in a 1033 world. So super excited to dive in today.
So hopefully everyone tuning in has heard about 1033. If you may not be as familiar with the rule, I'll ask John to kick things off with a summary of how Section 1033 came to be and what its purpose is.
Thanks, Rachel. I really do hope everyone has heard about 1033, but if not, here's a quick breakdown. Section 1033 is part of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. Dodd-Frank was passed in direct response to the 2008 financial crisis, and it added new rules and oversight for the financial services industry to protect consumers. The rulemaking process for Section 1033, which is just one part of the Dodd-Frank Act, kicked off in 2016 by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. After multiple rounds of industry engagement and feedback, the proposed rule was released in 2023. Following a comment period in which Plaid participated, the final rule was issued just last month. Section 1033 is a landmark consumer data rights rule, affirming open banking in the United States. The rule ensures consumers have consistent, secure access to their financial data. Plaid is encouraged by the CFPB's efforts to promote consumer choice and competition and establish additional safeguards for consumers in our industry. This is something Plaid has long advocated for to help unlock financial freedom for all.
Thanks for that summary, John. Before we get into the specifics of the rule, you both were at Money 2020 recently, where open banking and the final rule were hot topics. What is the industry's reaction to the final rule? Let's start with Jordie.
I would say overall general excitement, lots and lots of discussions on interpretations. I would say the biggest topic was the new timelines that we'll get more into today. TLDR is that the extra time is not really extra time. It's more of a realistic timeline. And the overall sentiment that we were hearing is that folks are still starting now with their 1033 implementations.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jordie. I'd also say we're hearing more overall about 1033 being something that isn't just a compliance exercise, but also an opportunity to differentiate yourself from your competitors, right? Using 1033 to build the best products and experiences. Those best products and experiences, of course, always have consumers in mind. And we think it's going to be really exciting to see how 1033 plays out and what this unlocks for consumer experiences when interacting with their finances.
Let's go ahead and start with some basics of the rule. What is considered covered data, and has it changed in the final rule?
Covered data generally remains the same in the final rule and includes transaction information, account balances, upcoming bill information, information necessary to initiate a payment, terms and conditions, and basic account verification information. Data providers like banks and certain fintechs will be required to make covered data available to consumers and authorized third parties upon request in a standardized, reliable, and secure format.
Okay, John, the rule specifies that the covered data should be used to power the products and services that a consumer has sought out. But many third parties have asked about secondary data uses. What does the rule say about that?
So, under the final rule, cover data can only be used as reasonably necessary to provide the consumer's requested product or service. For example, a reasonably necessary use might include using the data to improve the product or service the consumer requested, but generally excludes things like targeted advertising and cross selling.
Could you give a quick summary of the key requirements for authorized third parties and if any of them have changed in the final rule?
I don't know if it's a quick summary, but I can give us a start. Authorized third parties are also often referred to as data recipients. These are companies that are authorized by a consumer to collect and use covered data from a data provider. In general, the final rule remains largely the same as the previously proposed rule across third party requirements. Some of the key requirements include limitations on the collection, use, and retention of consumer covered data, authorization management. Third parties have to get consumer authorization to access their data and make sure that consumers are informed about what data they are sharing and how it will be used. This includes reauthorization every 12 months and providing a way to revoke access at any time. Also, record retention. Third parties will be required to establish and maintain policies and procedures for compliance and to keep records that show their compliance. For onboarding and security, third parties need to provide certain information to the data provider to help validate that they are a legitimate entity, and they need to have an adequate security practices to safely handle consumer data.
The final rule also says that the CFPB is providing additional time for the largest data providers to come into compliance with the final rule, something Jordie mentioned earlier. This would give third parties and aggregators additional time to prepare for implementation of the rule. How should third parties interpret this for their compliance deadlines?
That's right. CFPB has given third parties and aggregators additional time to prepare for the implementation of this rule. Compliance deadlines for third parties appear to be tied to bank API deadlines, the first of which for the largest banks is April 2026.
And Jordie, if third parties have until 2026 to comply, how should they think about compliance planning? Should they wait or get started now?
So, great question. Some data providers are well underway with their 1033 implementation, and they actually might be 1033 ready ahead of their 2026 deadline. So, if this does happen, they may expect third parties to be in compliance before the April 2026 deadline to access data. So, while there is more time for implementation, we do urge third parties to prioritize this in their 2025 roadmaps. The good news is that customers or third parties do not need to start from scratch. Plaid has been working with our customers and data partners on solutions in anticipation of the final rule. And these solutions are already available today with the goal of simplifying some of the compliance work. And several of our solutions require no integration work at all and can be enabled directly from your Plaid dashboard. Where we do need to, we will be making tweaks to our solutions in the coming months to align with the final rule compared to what was in the draft rule.
Let's get into some questions around the requirements for third parties. Many of our customers have asked about legal entity identifier, or LEI. Who needs to register for one and why is it needed? John, can you help clear up the air about what an LEI is and what's required for the rule?
Yeah, sure. So a legal entity identifier, or LEI, is a 20-character code that is registered on a centralized system and enables clear and unique identification of legal entities. Although originally intended for businesses engaged in trading or financial transactions, the scope of who is required to have an LEI is expanded by the 1033 rule. This is a new requirement for all third parties seeking access to 1033 covered data, regardless of whether they enable trading or financial transactions. Data providers can deny access to a third party if, among other things, the third party's LEI is not provided. There is a general push among federal agencies, not just the CFPB, to have more businesses acquire LEIs for identification. Fortunately, an LEI is not difficult to obtain, and Plaid can provide you with instructions on how to get one as part of our 1033 implementation resource guide.
Thanks, John. So, Jordie, along with LEI, third parties are required to provide other business information to verify that they are a legitimate entity. How will Plaid help our customers to provide this information to data providers?
So we already have Plaid customers covered here with our Compliance Center. So the Compliance Center is accessible by our customers in the Plaid dashboard, and it's where they can go to review and update their business information, such as legal entity name, website address, and contact email. We'll then share this information with our data providers on our customers' behalf, such as via our app directory solution, so that our customers can avoid any disruptions in data access. And these solutions are already live and easy to use.
Next up, how will reauthorization work? And does it apply to a third party's existing users?
Yeah, the final rule limits consumer consent to the collection, use, and storage of covered data to a maximum of 1 year after the consumer's most recent authorization, which means that third parties will have to seek periodic reauthorization from consumers in order to continue processing their data. This will apply to existing users as well. All of this will need to be included in the authorization disclosure to the consumer.
And Jordie, is there a streamlined way for Plaid customers to capture reauthorization at least every 12 months?
Absolutely. So we have two solutions to help customers with this. First is our webhooks, and then we also have update mode. So you can integrate with our webhooks to receive advanced notifications about upcoming consent expirations, and then use update mode to prompt your users to renew their authorization. And update mode will be aligned to the authorization disclosure requirements that are outlined in the final rule. We also have optimizations to ensure that when a connection naturally needs to be repaired, we're also capturing reauthorization at this time. And we'd love to continue to work with you on solutions. So please reach out to your Plaid account manager at any time to further discuss.
Thanks, Jordie. Many third parties have also asked for clarification on what to do with covered data after a consumer has revoked their authorization or when authorization expires after 12 months.
Well, there's a general obligation to delete and also not keep collecting covered data if a consumer revokes access or when that authorization expires. However, the rule also has an exception which says unless use or retention of the covered data remains reasonably necessary to provide the consumer's requested product or service. For example, this exception could cover retention of data as needed to facilitate a recurring bill payment or mortgage payment. We recommend you consult with your legal team on how the data deletion requirement and expectations apply to your business.
Understood. Jordie, how can Plaid customers stay informed when a consumer revokes their data access so then they can then apply their data deletion and retention policy to the relevant covered data?
Yeah, so keeping the ecosystem in sync when there are changes to a consumer's authorization is actually a key requirement under 1033. So we make it really easy for customers to stay informed with webhooks that notify our customers when a consumer revokes either through Plaid Portal, our support team, or from a data partner's domain.
Open banking is increasingly a two-way street. It's common for authorized third parties to also act as data providers under Section 1033. In this case, what are some of the key focus areas for data providers under 1033, and when are their compliance deadlines?
Under 1033, data providers include entities that provide Regulation E accounts, issue Regulation Z credit cards, facilitate payments from Regulation E accounts or Regulation Z credit cards, or otherwise have covered data related to those products that a consumer obtained from that entity. So the data provider obligations apply to most banks and credit unions, certain fintechs, card issuers, and certain digital wallet providers. The focus areas for data providers remain largely the same as in the final rule as they did in the proposed rule. A few of them include the first is developer interfaces or APIs. Data providers are generally required to make covered data available at consumers' direction through a safe and reliable developer interface. Authorization and records is the second area. When a consumer authorizes sharing covered data with a third party in the manner prescribed by the rule, the data provider must make the data available, retain authorization records, and can optionally provide consumers with a way to revoke authorization. The final area is third-party onboarding. Third parties need to make company details available and provide evidence of adequate data security to data providers to ensure their data access. In terms of compliance timelines, the CFPB has provided data providers with more time to implement 1033 requirements. They issued a tiered approach ranging from April 2026 to April 2030, based on a data provider's assets and revenue, with the largest institutions having the earliest compliance timelines.
Great, that makes sense. Surprisingly, though, there was one change in the final rule regarding the smallest of data providers. John, can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, that's the change in the final rule is that 1033 won't apply to the smallest banks in the US that hold less than $850 million of assets. While the final rule does not apply to all data providers, consumers' right to access their data under Dodd-Frank still does. And Plaid will continue to work with data providers of all sizes to accelerate the shift to API connectivity. To date, we've helped over 7,000 organizations have access to API connectivity. And we partner with technology providers like Jack Henry to enable API connectivity for regional and community financial institutions across the US.
And Jordie, how is your product team thinking about 1033 for data providers?
So we've been advocates for open banking and open finance long before the 1033 rule was finalized. And we have dedicated teams that have been working on solutions to support all sides of the ecosystem, especially data providers. Earlier this year, we launched an open finance solution to support our data providers in a 1033 world. And when it comes to building solutions for data providers, our philosophy is really twofold. First is that we've taken an approach that decreases the amount of work that needs to be done by the data provider while still offering the visibility and control that we know data providers really care about. The second is that we designed our solutions to align with the ecosystem through the Financial Data Exchange, FDX's standards.
We've covered a lot of the new compliance requirements resulting from the final rule, but are there any other benefits for consumers and businesses from this new open banking era?
Oh, a ton of benefits to consumers and businesses, Rachel. Open banking has been in the US for more than a decade now, but we're really excited to see how consumers will have increased access to financial services as a result of the 1033 final rule. Three areas I want to highlight that will help consumers and businesses. First, we're investing in cash flow underwriting to help lenders reach more borrowers, which can result in more borrowers getting access to credit. Earlier this year, we launched Plaid Check, a consumer reporting agency which connects lenders to risk insights and real-time cash flow data for a faster, safer, and easier lending experience. We also brought Plaid's account linking solution to Pay by Bank. This gives consumers more optionality in how they pay while helping businesses lower transaction costs and reduce return risk. Lastly, we're introducing new solutions to help protect consumers and businesses from fraud. Take, for example, Beacon, which helps businesses to understand if an entity or account and routing number is associated with a stolen ID, synthetic account takeover fraud, or a data breach. This is just the start, and we couldn't be more excited to help businesses to embrace an open banking future.
Now that we've covered what's in the final rule, people may be wondering how they can get started with preparing for 1033. In particular, why should customers trust and use Plaid to help with their 1033 compliance?
Complying with new regulation is no small feat, and at Plaid, we have spent years preparing for this very moment. Our open finance is our core business, and we believe that it is our responsibility to support all of our customers through this transition to a more regulated industry going forward. We are championing the transition from legacy data access to 1033 compliant data access. And the good news is that we've already done a lot of the work to ensure that our solutions can align to the final 1033 rule and help our customers meet their 1033 obligations without having to take their eyes off their core business.
That's great, Jordie. How can customers get started with our solutions for 1033?
So we recommend that our customers start by first reviewing the rule with their legal, compliance, policy, and product teams, just to name a few, and to understand the implications to your business and your use cases from this rule. Next, we have a number of resources that we encourage you to go look at. First, a readiness guide with actionable steps to help you get a head start on your 1033 implementation. The guide includes an overview of our solutions, which we will be fine-tuning in the coming weeks and months to ensure that they align with the final rule. I'm going to now do a quick drive-by of our solutions. So as you can see on your screen, 1033 implementation isn't just building one thing. It's delivering all of these things. And that's where Plaid comes in. It's to build this suite for you at no cost and with minimal work required to implement these solutions. First, we have Plaid Link. This is our user interface. It is the standardized way to capture authorization on your behalf to help with compliance. Included in Link is data transparency messaging. This shows the required 1033 disclosures to the consumer including use cases and the data that you're requesting, and then captures consent to share their data. Data transparency messaging can be enabled now from the Plaid dashboard, so definitely recommend you go do that. The second, to prepare for reauthorization every 12 months that we spoke about, customers can integrate with our link feature update mode, as well as our pending disconnect webhook to be informed when a consumer's authorization is expiring soon. Next, to support the requirement to allow consumers to revoke their authorization at any time, consumers can use Plaid Portal. Since 2022, consumers have used Portal to view and revoke access to their connections to Plaid-powered apps and services, and no work is needed on your part to enable this. Next, we have our consent API. And what this will do is it will make available a history of authorizations, reauthorizations, and revocations for each item. Plaid will provide at least 3 years of records as required under 1033, so that you have all the records that you need for any future audit. And lastly, you can review your business information on the compliance center of the Plaid dashboard, like we talked about earlier. So this would include adding the legal entity identifier after you've registered for one if you don't have one already. And as you may remember as our customer, we also did risk management reviews when you're onboarded to Plaid, and we'll continue to monitor and mitigate risks. And if needed, we can then provide some of this information about those reviews back to our data providers on your behalf to support their access requirements under the rule. So continue to stay tuned for more updates on our solutions as we may continue to enhance them to align with the final rule.
That's all the time we have today. I want to thank John and Jordie for joining us today to share their insights on the final 1033 rule. To recap today's Tech Talk, we discussed how the final 1033 rule requires third parties or data recipients to be compliant across several areas, including limitations on the collection, use, and retention of consumer-covered data, authorization management, record retention, onboarding, and security. Compliance deadlines for third parties appear to be tied to bank API deadlines, the first of which is April 2026 for the largest banks. However, it's important to prepare for implementation well in advance. Plaid has been preparing for this regulation for several years, and we're here to help you navigate this rule and simplify compliance. Check out our website and access our 1033 readiness guide to learn more. Finally, we would love to connect with you to understand how you're interpreting the 1033 rule and how Plaid can further simplify compliance for your business. Please share any feedback on our solutions or any requests for new tools that we can build to help you prepare for 1033 implementation. Thanks for joining us, and until next time.